This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, our guest tonight is my good friend, the State Treasurer, Young Boozer, who's now in his 7th year as State Treasurer of Alabama. Young, good to have you on the show.
It's good to be here, Steve.
Young and I were watching the beginning of my show, and we were reminiscing about his daddy, and I were good friends. And I met Young with his daddy on the Capitol steps, about where you viewers were seeing me walk down the steps.
That's exactly right, and that view reminded me of where I met you, except we were on the other side of the stairs when we were coming up.
About what year was that?
Oh my gosh, I don't recall. A long time ago.
You were still out in California in a bank, weren't you? Or you come back
I was
home?
either in California or just moved to Houston, Texas. Yeah.
Yo, Daddy, I want to go over this ancestral thing because I'm sort of a history buff. But if I don't want to steal your thunder, but if I remember right, your name is so unique. Your granddaddy was the original Young Boozer, and he was mayor of Sampson and was in the timber business down there.
That is correct.
And your daddy was very, very prominent and very well known. Young Boozer II was not only a great football player at the University of Alabama, who played with Bear Bryant, was a defensive back, who I guess they played both ways.
They played both ways.
So
he played on offense and defense.
But he intercepted a pass that sealed the game in the Rose Bowl when Bryant and them were playing Stanford, and then you went to Stanford.
That's exactly right.
Ironically, but after that, his daddy was a very, very prominent businessman in the state who started the old Cotton States Life Insurance Company and merged it with Alpha's Life Insurance Company later in life, and that's when I met him. I was chairman of the insurance committee in the House, and I would visit with your daddy and some of the lobbyists for the Alpha quite often. But I missed something. Tell me more about your granddaddy down there in Sampson, though. I've been to Geneva 2 or 3 times the last 3 or 4 months down at Rotary Club, and visit with them down there. And do you ever get down to Sampson?
I actually get down there on a regular basis.
They know you from there, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Hey, Young, when you ran for treasurer both times, you didn't have an opponent last time, did you?
I didn't.
But when you ran the first time, could you see a marked difference in Geneva County, a little bit better vote than some other counties? Because would you look at that?
I looked at that, and I would like to attribute it to me, but I'm not sure that's the case. But I was happy with the outcome.
Could you see a marked difference in other counties around there? Any difference? Any more votes? Who ran against you for treasurer the first time?
Well, in the primary, George Wallace Jr. ran against me.
Did he?
Yes.
I forgot about that.
And then in the general election, Charlie Grimsley ran against me.
As a Democrat.
That's right. And then in the in my re-election in 2014, nobody ran against me in the primary or in the general election.
So you were unopposed both times?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Young, did you ever sit down? Did you sit down and look and say, well, look, here's Geneva County. My granddaddy was from there. And I got this percentage in Houston, this percentage in Covington. Was it a little higher or anything?
It was higher in Geneva. There's no question about that.
You could see it.
Going down there, we created a bit of a buzz. You know, my grandfather was the mayor of Sampson from 1916 to 1919. Well, gosh, that's 100 years ago. Hadn't thought about that. And he was in the timber business, and he was a prominent community leader. And unfortunately, he died in the influenza epidemic of 1919. And left my grandmother a widow who had 4 children under 6. So my dad's father died when my dad was only 6 years old.
Was that lady, was she from Geneva County originally, your grandmama?
She was from Geneva.
From Geneva, huh?
Yes.
Did you ever know her?
Yes, I did.
She was your grandmama?
Yeah, she lived to her early 90s, so I knew her well.
You were an adult before she died then, wasn't you?
Yes, it was.
Would she talk to you about stuff about your granddaddy and stuff like that back in the old days, about old-timey politics down there?
No, she didn't do much talking like that.
But then, tell me about your daddy. Tell me your best memories about your daddy.
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things.
Were you only child?
No, I have 2 sisters. Actually, I'm the youngest of the whole family.
Where do they live?
Joanne is 6 years older than I am, and she lives in Noonan, Georgia, and she's been in Georgia for a number of years. She graduated from the University of Alabama and moved right over there to work for Riches, and she did that for a while. Met her husband, settled down over there, raised 2 great kids, and she is a community leader in her community of Newnan, as you would expect a boozer to be.
And then who was the other sister? Where she live?
She lives in Santa Fe right now. Ellen.
She's sort of artistic or something? Santa Fe is sort of artist place, you know.
She went to Stanford University also.
Did she really?
She
before you?
Yes, 2 years ahead of me. She got an architectural degree from the University of Texas at Austin. They lived, she and her husband lived in Dallas for years, maybe 35 years, and she was in the art business. She worked with a fellow who owned an art gallery. She did all of his operations, all of his financial work.
Santa Fe is known for that.
Yes, and then she moved to Santa Fe. They bought property and built their dream house out there, and they retired to Santa Fe about 2 or 3 years ago.
Tell me, going back to your daddy, would your daddy ever talk about football much, or what?
Oh, sure.
When you were growing up?
Yeah, I want to mention something. My dad was a great football player.
He sure was.
And they played both ways.
Did Dixie Howell play with him?
Dixie Howell, Don Hudson,
Dixie
Tarzan
Howell's
White.
from down there in the Wiregrass,
He's
too.
from Hartford.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Did they know each other growing up?
No, not growing up. Dixie was 2 years older than Dad. So when Dixie was a senior and played in the Rose Bowl, Dad was a sophomore. And then my dad's junior and senior year, I think this is correct, it's 2 consecutive years, he led the SEC in batting. And
in baseball, too.
Tremendous baseball player. And one year he batted like .481 or something like that. So great baseball player.
Young, let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Do you know that reminds me of a story, and you need to tell Bubba Trotman about this story. Bubba Trotman had an aunt named Miss Lucy Nall, and Miss Lucy lives there on Murphy Street, where I live in Troy on Murphy Street, and she had a boarding house, and there was minor league baseball in towns like Dothan, Troy, and Ozark, and your daddy played on one of those minor league baseball teams and stayed at Miss Lucy's house. I don't know whether Bubba Trotman knows that or not. Miss Bubba's mama was, and also Bubba's nephew is Nall Hollis, the artist Nall.
Yeah.
You know, and who grew up there on Murphy Street too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bubba's aunt, house, your daddy told me that. And he told me he lived with Miss Lucy one summer when he was a minor league baseball player.
And he did, and he told me that story too. I think Bubba knows that. Yeah.
I didn't know if you, I just thought about it. I mean, interrupt you, but I remember he was a good enough baseball player. He played.
Oh, he was terrific.
Yeah.
And they used to do that during the summer while they were in school. And they played all over the South and Southeast. He played one summer up in North Carolina in the league up there. And he had been scouted by a number of major league teams, and it looked like he was going to be able to finish up his career at Alabama and then go to the Boston Red Sox. But unfortunately, in his senior year, he broke a vertebra in his neck. In football, playing football, and never really recovered from that. And he could still hit, but he couldn't throw the way that he used to, and so he didn't get the chance to go to the major leagues.
How did he get started in that Cotton States? What was his first thing he did? He didn't go in the insurance business right off the bat, or did he?
Oh, no, he didn't. He actually was in banking. He was also, he worked for the bank examiners here and the insurance examiners here for Adelie Farish. I don't know if you remember her.
Remember her name, yeah.
She was my godmother, and so he did that. He sold war bonds after the war to raise money. And he ended up in Birmingham, and he and a fellow had a sporting goods store called Dixie Sporting Goods.
Yeah.
And they were competitors with Sinkton Sporting Goods in Birmingham, and he did that for a number of years. And in 1958, 59, something along there, he got a call from a fellow by the name of Foots Clements, who was from Tuscaloosa. They had been great friends during their college days, and Foots was a mover and a shaker. He was a real politico.
Yeah, I knew who he was, yeah.
He had ownership in...
Shelby talks about him.
Yes, he does. They knew him well.
Yeah.
He owned some stock in Cotton States, and it wasn't doing well. So he called up Dad, because he'd known him all these years, and he said, we need somebody who's a real leader who can come in here and run this thing and make this thing make money. And Dad said, I'm your man. he moves down there, and it must have been the summer of '59.
He actually moved to Tuscaloosa.
He moved to Tuscaloosa, and
so
took
you grew up in Tuscaloosa part of your life, didn't you?
Well, I did. Yeah. So I was in Birmingham from birth till about 10, and then the rest of the time through high school I was in Tuscaloosa.
Well, you and Ryan DeGraff were about the same age.
Yeah, he was a year younger. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So
We knew each other well.
y'all were good friends in high school.
We were good friends. Yeah. I helped him with his campaign for student body president, and he helped me with mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be doggone. Ryan was my good friend, and his daddy was. I was speaking to the Huntsville Rotary Club Tuesday, and a question was asked me about his daddy, Ryan DeGraff and Reed, and unequivocally his daddy would have won the governor's race in '66. There was no question. He had George Wallace would never run Lurleen. I mean, I've never seen a better organized campaign. Everybody in the state was going to vote for Ryan DeGraff and Reed.
He was a terrific candidate.
He'd run second to Wallace in '62, and you couldn't succeed yourself, you know. And so he took a page from Wallace's playbook. He never stopped running. Wallace did the same thing after he lost to Patterson in '58. You know, you couldn't succeed. So however you ran, that was called the Get Acquainted race. You ran second, and you ran for 4 years. That train had happened repeatedly for 50 years. I talk about it in my book, Goats and Governors.
I remember that.
How the Get Acquainted race, you can take it almost without missing a link. If you ran second for governor, you won 4 years later.
Yeah.
And so, because you run the Get Acquainted race. So DeGraff and Reed had that race won. Took off on that airplane, and do you remember the day it happened? I bet it was sort of a sad day at Tuscaloosa High School, wasn't it?
It was.
What grade were y'all in? About.
So what year was that? It was
66?
66, so I was a junior.
It was February of '66.
Yeah.
I bet that was traumatic for Ryan.
Yes, it was. For the whole community.
Whole community. Well, the whole state.
Yeah.
I was sitting in high school in Troy, Alabama, and I was already a Politico, and everybody knew I was for Ryan DeGraff and Reed. And I had a number of guy come and say, "Yo, Canada just got killed in a plane crash."
Yeah.
They told him, the pilot, not to take off.
That's right. That's the story.
You know, and they still talk about it at Fort Payne. I was up at a book signing in the fall last year at the Fort Payne Library, and they showed me all the pictures, and they saved some of the things from the plane and so forth. But I didn't mean to get off on that. Your dad never was enticed to get in politics, though, was he?
Not really.
Not really.
He enjoyed being a part of it and being around it, but he never really considered running for office.
So you went from Tuscaloosa High School to Stanford.
I did.
Did you go straight to Wharton to get your master's after Stanford, or did you work for a bank after the?
I went straight to Wharton,
Uh-huh.
and went to Philadelphia right after Stanford.
Young, I have said this repeatedly. I'm going to repeat myself. But I said this when you ran for this office, and I've said it ever since you've been in the state treasurer's office, that very rarely, and I tell civic clubs this all over the state, I says, and I also say it about John McMillan, who is the agriculture commissioner. If you took your resume and you put it into a computer over at the merit system of the state of Alabama and said, we're fixing to hire the state treasurer, who is the best qualified candidate, they come up with your name. I mean, you couldn't have drawn up a perfect, I mean, so many people in the state run for an office, a secondary or statewide constitutional office, to run for higher office. We've had quite a few attorney generals who never have been in the courtroom before being attorney general. But you had Stanford undergraduate degree in finance, banking, graduate degree from one of the best business schools in America, worked for banks all your life, so you knew the banking business. You knew how to be state treasurer.
I do.
I mean, so that was like the perfect job.
Yeah.
It's going to be a shame whoever follows you,
Well,
because they ain't going to have the kind of background for it.
Well, here's my objective, okay? You've given me a lead here. I basically have two legacies that I would like to leave here. The first is I would like to address each and every part of the treasurer's office and make it the best it can possibly be in this day and age, in the 21st century. And that's exactly what we've done since I've been there. When I first got there, I sat down with all of my managers and I said, who are you? What do you do? How do you do it? How can we do it better? And we have methodically gone down the list and identified what needs to be done to make it the best, and we've done that. I have one major project that I'm working on with unclaimed property. We are in the process of installing a new software operating system which will bring us into the 21st century. It'll allow us to process these items faster, more efficiently. We'll be able to save some money as well as push some more money out there to the people who deserve to get their money back. So that's the last major project. So what I hope to do, my legacy, is to have it in such condition that the next treasurer really doesn't have to do much.
You go entice somebody to run for it.
Well, maybe so. Now, here's the other thing of the legacy, is that I do have a good resume for this, and I do have a skill set that fits with this perfectly. What I'd like to do is inspire other people like me to step up and be a part of public service in this office. And to be able to say, yeah, you can go out there, you can do these things, and there is a place for you here.
But you know, I'm not saying it's not. You had your career done and everything, you know, personally, but those jobs don't pay as much as people think they do over there.
They don't.
They don't pay about $75,000, $80,000, maybe a $90,000 a year, something.
85,000
Yeah.
and change.
All
Yeah.
y'all that make the same thing, the treasurer,
Pretty much,
and
yes.
the Secretary of State, and everything about the same thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's established by statute.
Yeah, I knew that was the case. I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying in other careers, I mean, you don't need the salary personally. I'm just saying that, and it's good you're in a position not need to, but to entice someone to do that who needs a job, it may not entice, you know, someone with your background.
That's right. But what you're trying to do, I think, is entice somebody to enter into public service for the public good. And it's a nice salary. I mean, it's a lot more than the average Alabamian makes.
Right,
so
that's true. Yeah.
So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But is it less than I was making before? Yeah, it's a lot less.
Yeah.
But I think I'm doing some good for the state.
You are.
And part of my compensation, the way I feel about part of my compensation, an important part of my compensation, is when somebody comes up to me and says, "Thank you for doing what you're doing." That's huge.
Yeah. Young, what about, you mentioned the unclaimed property. Explain that to our viewers, because that's one of the important jobs of state treasurer, the details of how that works and everything, and how you're building on that to find people's, like you came over here with a file thinking maybe I'd lost a little money, but I'm not going to, it wasn't me, it was some other Steve Flowers.
Yeah.
But that's good. I mean, tell our viewers what happened, how the whole process of that.
Okay, let me give you some numbers too that are kind of remarkable. The state of Alabama has, at this point in time, about $672 million in unclaimed property.
That's a lot.
That is a lot of money.
Let me ask you before we
yeah.
get in there. Do other states have, the treasurers have the same job, or is this unique for Alabama? To take care of the
Most
unclaimed?
treasurers do this.
This is part of the treasurers.
Yes.
Is there a treasurers conference like a National Association of State Treasurers
We have an organization that is named exactly that.
that you go to? Y'all
Yes.
meet how many times a year? Once, twice? A year?
We probably meet 3 times a year, and to exchange ideas.
That's good too.
Oh, it's very good. It has helped us quite a bit. And we're also helping other people, is that we've got a great public deposit collateral program called the SAFE program that's one of the best in the country. And we've had a lot of other states come to us and ask us, how do you work it? How can we learn from you? How can you help us make our system better? So we're able to help them, and they've been able to help us from time to
I
time.
interrupted you. That answered that question.
Yeah.
Because that made me curious about that. But go back to the details of the
Yeah.
unclaimed property, because other treasurers do have the same concept. But
They do.
what we're doing, is theirs that high, $600 million?
Some are bigger. I mean, just think
Well,
about
bigger state. I mean,
bigger state, sure.
Uh-huh.
So if you take a state, let's say Alabama's 4.8 million people. Let's take California. So let's say it's 10 times bigger. Is that likely to be 10 times bigger? Their unclaimed property, I'm going to guess, is $5 billion. It's sort of just the law of large numbers. So we have 672 million in total. It's about 6.3 million claims. So you can do the math and see that it's only about $100 a claim on average.
That's what those were about.
No, that's right. That is. That's unusual. Because sometimes it'll be $2.87, or sometimes it can be $150,000.
Yeah.
And so what our job is to get that money back to the individual to whom it belongs. And there are a lot of different ways that we do that. But let me tell you probably the most common way that it becomes unclaimed property. And let me use an example of a bank. After 3 years, when a bank loses contact with you, you're no longer making transactions in your account. They are required to turn that money over to us and in your name. So what happens is that you open an account at the university, you're in school there, it's got 50 bucks in it, you get a job in some other city, you move. You forget about that account. After 3 years, they turn it over to us. Then what we try to do, our job is to find you wherever you have gone and get that money back to you. So it can either be the balance in a checking account, it could be a security deposit, it could be an unpaid check from the state of Alabama. It was an uncashed check. There are all kinds of ways where that happens. And it comes to us. It's always going to be there. You can claim it at any time. It doesn't turn over to the state at any particular time. And a lot of times we get safe deposit box content. So it could be jewelry or guns or knives.
Where
or
do you
coins.
house that stuff?
We have a vault in the basement of the Capitol.
Underneath your office over there?
We do. It's a gigantic
Maybe we
vault.
shouldn't tell people. They might be watching, want to break in there or something.
Well, hopefully they won't, but it's, it would be quite a feat to break into that vault.
So it's right under y'all's office?
That's right.
Do you go down there from y'all's office? It's been the treasurer's office been there for
It's in the
years.
basement.
Yeah. I'd be doggone. I didn't know that. But
And
you have to have warehouses around for like boats and things like that.
we don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that kind of property is not ours.
Okay.
We're doing things like personal items. So it would be rings and necklaces, things that would be in
And
a
money from banks.
safe deposit box. And then what we try to do is connect the people with it. Now what we're doing is we're investing in a brand new software system that will make our jobs a lot easier on inventorying that stuff and then making contact and getting a faster payout to the individuals.
You know, back in the old days.
Oh, let me say this too, is that what I would like to do, people watching this show, go onto our website, treasury.alabama.gov. You will come to our home page, and right there, there is an icon that you can click on that says unclaimed property. Click on that, and all you got to do is put in your first name, your last name, and your city, and hit enter, and it will let you know if we have unclaimed property for you. If we do, then all you got to do is call up a claim form, fill it out, send it in, and we'll respond to it. So everybody out there should be checking to see if we've got your money, because we want to get it back to you.
We got about 5.5 minutes. If Ronnie, if you can put that up there, we'd do it if we know how to do it. John, y'all know how to do that? Can y'all do that? Put that website up there. What is the name of it again?
Treasury.alabama.gov.
Treasury.alabama.gov.
For unclaimed property.
Because some of them be watching this show and think, well, I did leave my account, in the bank. I moved from Wetumpka the other day and, did it like that.
That would be great.
Back in the old days, one of the ways that people running for treasurer would raise campaign money. It's hard to raise money for those secondary offices, like treasurer and secretary of state and auditor and that sort of thing. But the banks used to give contributions. They want the treasurer to put deposits, but those deposits ain't the amount of money that day's gone, isn't it? I mean, they don't really want those deposits.
Those days are gone.
Those days are gone.
They are.
That's gone.
It has changed dramatically. I went back and looked at this.
You knew that, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely. We went back and looked at, in 2006, we had approximately the same amount of money. We had about $1 billion in bank accounts around the state. And in 2006, that earned about $125 million. Since then, we've had the 2008 economic collapse. Banks had problems. They didn't have loan demand. Interest rates went down. And so today, we have about $300 to $350 million in deposits in banks, so it's way down. The interest rates are incredibly low. We're lucky if we can get 30 to 50 basis points on a deposit out there, so that we have gone from earning $125 million to approximately $20 million. That's one of the problems with the general fund, is that the interest earnings that we had been pouring into the general fund are way down because of the interest rates.
So that money is not retained like the ABC department retains their profits. They're independent. Whatever money you earn goes back into the general fund.
That is correct. All of it goes back in.
It's like just part of the state revenue, like a tax source or something.
That's right.
You never see that money out of your office.
No, it doesn't. We're funded totally separately. Yeah.
Well, your office probably has lost personnel over the last 6 years, hasn't it?
We have reduced our personnel from, when I got there, we had 46 people. Now we have about 30.
Wow.
And we are much more efficient. We're providing the same, if not better, customer service because we pride ourselves on that. We're doing it faster, leaner, cheaper, and more efficiently. So we're doing a good job.
Young, how much of your time does it take doing things like this, having to be on talk TV shows and kids coming to the Capitol? Your day, what time do you start your day there at the State House and the Capitol?
I get there about 7:45
and
get things set up because the money markets open early. And you got to be there to monitor what's going on in the market. And of course, you're in the Capitol, so a lot of people are coming through there. The fourth graders come through.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's always fun if you catch one of those little groups and have a chance.
Do they
to
plan ahead? Just pop in there?
They just pop in. We have an open door. Anybody wants to come in can. We're totally transparent.
So yeah, I bet you do have a lot of fourth graders come in there.
We have a ton, and it's a great group of kids.
When I was in the legislature, that was one of my most enjoyable times was spending time with my school kids from my house district when they would come in, and take them around the Capitol. You know, the place they liked the best was the little White House, and they liked the governor's mansion.
Yes.
And we had some governors who closed the mansion down and wouldn't let the school kids in there. And I told somebody one day that's not a fun place to live. It's like living in a zoo. I mean, if you're how would you like me walking, get to the shower, and the fourth graders in your living room, all day long. People don't realize that. They think that big old governor's mansion over there is real, great place to live, but it's actually not.
It's wide open.
It really is.
It is wide open.
I mean, but anyway, your wife and I have been friends a long time, Sally Jackson. I don't know if a lot of our viewers are here in the Montgomery River region, where you've lived most of your adult life, and Sally has too.
Yeah.
But she and I went to school together at the University of Alabama at the same time, and her family was from over in Barber County, which I represented when I first went to the legislature.
Right.
Her family, all physicians, her ancestors were, and people in Montgomery don't realize that. That's how Jackson Hospital started.
That's exactly right.
I don't know if you knew that or not.
Absolutely.
That Jackson family came from Clio and Louisville and Barber County and started that started that Jackson Hospital. That was her family.
Yes.
A lot of people didn't realize that. Younger, we could talk about the PAC program and everything. We have to have you on back again. Our time's up.
Yeah.
We got talking about old-timey stuff.
Yeah.
But Miss Lucy Null, how'd your daddy
I'm going to check on that.
Yeah, tell Bubba that when you see
I will
him.
do that.
Yeah. Folks, our guest tonight has been our state treasurer, Young Boozer, who's a delightful gentleman and had a great career in banking, is now our state treasurer and about to finish up his full second term. Thank you all for watching, and hope you tune in again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you, Young.
You're welcome.
He goes by and hurry, doesn't he?